Welcome to the SVG-TV news for Tuesday, August 18th. I am Khalil Kato with the details. The sourcing of geothermal energy at Bamboo Range from the La Soufriere volcano has been unsuccessful and the rig will be decommissioned. This is according to Director of the Energy Unit, Ellsworth Dakin, who told SVG-TV News today the permeability from 3 wells dug at the site was not sufficient to proceed with the project. He said they took into consideration how economical it was to continue, while noting government does not owe anyone monies for the work to be carried out on the project.
Results weren't as we expected. We got permeability, but not sufficient enough for it to be commercially viable. We had heat of about 250 degrees Celsius, but we look at the economics of it. The project could not be economically viable, but we haven't abandoned the project. We have some other options. We are looking at some closed loop systems, and we are speaking to 3 companies presently. So we'll see how it goes. We would have spent from 2012 to now over 35 million US. The government would have spent just about 2% of that cost. That's over 700,000 US. Over 30 million was, 29 million was grants, and just over 7 million was from private equity.
While noting that a decision was made by government not to proceed with the procurement of testing equipment, as was initially announced, Dakin, however, noted that testing continues.
Project, we are discussing with some other companies, and if we secure the capital and we look at the economics, the dam will be used going forward. So I can't say that we have any other plans for the dam at this point in time. But we won't be looking for permeability going forward. We're going to use a closed loop system, which we're just going to use water circulating in a loop, where we use the heat from the rock to get the same geothermal energy. So instead of using the water, which will eventually turn to steam, which will turn a turbine, we're not going to do that. We're going to do it in a different way. So we won't require the permeability from the rock, because we will be actually using a working fluid in a closed loop system.
The head of the Energy Unit expressed disappointment with the outcome of the project, but said that government has not totally abandoned it, as they are looking to work with 3 other companies for other energy sources.
Disappointed. We all should be disappointed. This is a project that we all were looking forward to, that was supposed to be a game changer, and the results weren't as we expected. So it is something to be disappointed about. I know they'll have the political football and so on it. It's the season for that. But I think we all will be very disappointed in the results. But we're still going to give our best efforts. It's not all losses yet. We found the heat, we didn't find water, and there are still technologies we can utilize to have the project. So we have about 15 local staff on the site now that will provide security and so on. We have 1 Reykjavik staff presently, and myself. That's the staff. So we most of the staff we communicate already in Iceland.
Reykjavik Geothermal, an Icelandic company, started drilling at this site last April using the Odin rig. Drilling on the 3rd well was completed in early January. The transportation of the drill rig will commence from as early as 4 a.m. tomorrow morning from Bamboo Range, La Soufriere to Port Kingstown. There are close to 100 containers of equipment to be transported with 2 convoys daily. Station Sergeant Parnell Brown of the Traffic Department of the RSVG Police Force said traffic officers will be leading the convoys of the equipment to Port Kingstown.
It is not usual for us to have all these containers moving at any one time on our roads. So we are organizing for at least 3 police escorts for each load or for each trip of containers. That there will be a sweeper, 1 to the front, he will be way ahead, and there will be 1 immediately behind him to intercept vehicles that might have passed through, whether the gaps and so on. We are advising that persons who are living close by, close to the road, and persons who might be doing business close to the roads, pay attention to when the convoy is passing and avoid getting closer to the road as to eliminate any danger or any threat of dangers that might occur during the time these containers are passing on our roads.
Station Sergeant Brown said they have been advised against transporting of the rig on Fridays and Saturdays as they are considered busy market days.
And we're expecting that to be in Port Kingston somewhere around 7:30 in the morning to avoid the heavy flow of traffic on our roads during the morning period. We are also saying to the general public that we would not be doing any escort on Fridays throughout the day, and on Saturday we would not be doing any escort until after 10 a.m. as the persons who will be going to the market, we will have to give them some consideration also for them to go and do their business. As early as 4:30, I know the market people will be on a road transporting their merchandise.
The rig is expected to be shipped out of SVG on September 3rd. The acquisition of at least 3 acres of land known as the McLean lands at Murray's Village, where 16 houses are located, has been the center of public discussion over the last few days. Dr. Wayne Murray, husband of Simone Murray, who was the manager of the lands, said it was shocking to learn that the government acquired the acres of land without any consultation.
The only communication that was ever had was with the chief surveyor, which is really to establish that the property was indeed owned by my wife's family. But there was no dialogue with the government with reference to why these persons got notices, or if there could have been any situation where, okay, if they're going to be finding some way for them, which the government is entitled to let's say, give them some more time, etc., or they are not following the law properly. So obviously, it demonstrates it must have been something that is done out of haste, spite, or victimization. Because if you were going to do this thing properly, and you were going to follow as the law stated, clearly, things like there should have been demarcated which part of the property which they will be acquiring, and we should know clearly where that is. And we don't know if it's up to our front door or if it's actually the land which our house is.
Dr. Murray explained that tenants were given at least 5 years' notice to vacate the lands, as it was never the intention for them to be housed there permanently.
A wooden home, no permanent concrete structures. They will establish themselves and they'll move on. There was never a concept of it being a continual colony, neither was it a means of earning money for rent. It was more so persons came and they begged and they pleaded, and then this was allowed. Seemingly it was going out of order. The population was increasing. Individuals then did not want to pay rent or claim that they could not have paid rent. My wife in 2005 was handed over the management of this issue by her grandmother, who was then in her 90s. My wife then decided to put this in order. That is, persons who were not paying rent were given notices of a period which is reasonable, but in general everyone was given notice for 5 years. That is, in 5 years' time, they'll have enough time to find other places to live.
Dr. Murray said his wife followed the law in dealing with the matter and did her best to help the tenants. He said that while they will not be pursuing legal action in the matter, they will wait to see what transpires.
Their children and their families, and so the government had to step in. Well, quite frankly speaking, the government could step in, and they could have stepped in. They could have stepped in and say, this is a situation, the landlord is correct in her action. And they can say, okay, we will try to remedy this. We will try to sort somewhere which we can give these people a place so their families can be properly housed. Now that's how a government steps in. It steps in because law should not always be overridden by a constitution. Because quite frankly speaking, it means therefore anyone at any point in time can deem their property to be earmarked, to be acquired, simply claiming that it's a public purpose. I operate a clinic.
Commenting on the issue on radio on Sunday, Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves said though the government had to take action, they are, however, open to dialogue.
We had to act, but I am always open to any further discussions. I don't, if the amount of land, if everybody can hold on 1 acre and there are 3 acres or whatever the case may be, and we see how the thing could work out, but we have to move expeditiously. We really didn't have much time.
So based on the circumstances, it thought that compulsory acquisition was necessary?
Yes, that's what the cabinet decided upon on advice given.
Meanwhile, some of the tenants told SVG-TV News they are happy that the government acquired the lands, noting that the notice to leave was closing in on them and they were not sure where to locate to.
Some till December this year, and some, well, I got one for June next year, right? And it's like the government must have heard about that and the government intervened and stuff like that. And I think that's a good move, most likely, because I mean, you know, so many people living up there for so much years and stuff like that. And it's full of straw people just happy and we're just so.
I feel happy and I feel sad in a sense. You understand? Because really and truly, I didn't really want to stay here. The people in them think I want to stay here, but I don't. Anybody around here could tell you I don't want to stay here, but if I don't have a choice, I have to.
The real terrible state comes to the road there. I wish I could do something better to make the road better and make everybody else live happy. Because this is after my grandmother's house first, and then after my grandmother left, my mother take over and we've been here living here all basically my life. If I to move, I have no problem with that, but I prefer it because I'm close to town and either for me to access for work and home.
To be honest, at the moment, I am very much happy and pleased because within a short space of time in this predicament, it's kind of hard to get land to purchase, and we are poor people. I wouldn't say that the landowner wasn't helpful to us. They were. The land itself, the rent, it wasn't expensive, though some people was not paying. Some people were not paying, which I find it was unfair for the landowners, while others were paying up. And $50 a year, $100 a year, that can't bust you.
In addition, they claim that tensions between them and the landowners had been increasing.
The people that impression that people come in on his premises and picking his fruits and stuff like that. But the fruit trees is boundary between the people them who renting, and there is with the people them who going and the guys going and picking a little coconut and the breadfruit and stuff like that. We're burning off between the bushes and stuff like that. Right? So when you're talking on radio, you have to give, you have to talk things clear.
Yeah.
You know? Don't give people the impression that is his yard that they're coming and picking the fruits and stuff like that. I think he meeting people, the little children, and him is like before the older folks them die. Right? They used to glad for the children and then come and pick the fruits and because then just they spoiling and stuff like that.
But then you give certain, we here, we living on boathouse, because as you could see, there's a lot of boathouse on the land. There's no permission to uplift your standard of living. You want to put on a warm bathroom because you're going outside to bathe and use the outside toilet, and they're only giving certain people permission. And we asked last year for just to give us, you understand, some permission to better the house. And she was saying yes, but we are not allowed to put on a wall bathroom or a toilet, but we could put on a wall column. After purchasing the items now to start doing the columns, then they gave us a notice. So if you know you are going to do that, then why make us start spending money to make our living, our house better?
I used to pay $60 per year, right? She raised it, she told me $25 per month. I told her, if you want to raise my rent, to raise it, but not from $60 a year to $300. That's a big jump. I don't mind she raise it slowly, but jumping it from $60 to $300, It's a big jump.
Yeah, about the government, but the situation of this man with the land thing, we really too pleased about that because you don't know, we depend on the land for real long now and we can't take this kind of thing where he going and win, no, man. You know, he ain't respect nobody. You go up there, he want to tell you how to walk up there and all kind of thing and all like that, you know?
I grew up there, born up there. My mother born up there. My grandmother live up there for all years, you know what I mean? I 33 years old, live up there all years. He just come where he come from and that's why I run everybody. We can't do anything there, he ain't poor for nothing. He own the land, your wife own the land. But you just feel now he try to move people, he can't happen. And I'm glad government said money.
On Monday, SVG recorded what should be confirmed one new case of COVID-19. This case, according to the National Emergency Management Organization, NEMO, arrived from the U.S. Virgin Islands and was quarantined due to the high-risk country of origin and has been isolated since the receipt of their preliminary positive result. The adult is said to be doing well and has no symptoms typical of COVID-19. 52 passengers who arrived from Toronto, Canada on Air Canada Flight 980 on Wednesday, August 13th, have been cleared from the mandatory quarantine. 6 of the passengers who were determined to be high risk because of their country of origin or their occupation remain in hotel or home quarantine. NEMO said all 56 passengers who arrived on American Airlines Flight 945 that should be on Saturday, August 15th, remain in mandatory quarantine. 8 COVID-19 cases have since recovered. That should be 8 COVID-19 cases recovered since August 6th, as indicated by 2 negative results of the RT-PCR tests. SVG now has recorded a total of 58 COVID-19 cases, 55 of which have recovered. There are now 3 active COVID-19 cases in the country. The public is being urged to comply with all of the public health measures currently in place, which are designed to keep COVID-19 contained in SVG. A sick bay for students and teachers at every school, proper sanitary measures on buses transporting students, along with a detailed protocol for schools in the event a student or teacher is suspected of contracting COVID-19 are just some of the provisions which President of the SVG Teachers Union, Oswald Robinson, says must be in place before schools reopen later this month. These issues were highlighted at a news conference hosted by the union today. Speaking on some of the concerns they have for the reopening of schools in light of the presence of COVID-19, the SVG-TU president says many schools do not have a designated sick bay area for students or teachers, with many utilizing the principal's office, which cannot and should not be allowed at this time.
If you don't have a sick bay, then you need to have a designated area that you could isolate somebody in the event they show signs of COVID or, as a matter of fact, any other disease or illness. Not the principal's office. So if the principals give the ministry, oh, you could use my office, that's a violation of the collective agreement. The principal's office is the center, is the hub of all activities of the school. That's where you have to go to make a phone call. That's where your teachers would go and interface with the principal. That's where the students would go. So we want to keep that area of the principal's office, and in some principal's office just a 2x4. You don't have a room to put a cot, much more bed. And you want to designate that area to use it for illnesses? No, that should never be. So we're sending that message clear and straight out to our principals. Designate some area, not your office. And we have said that to the Ministry of Education.
Many of the nation's students and teachers use public transportation to get to and from school. Robinson said in light of this, proper hygienic measures must be put in place for these buses to prevent possible transmission of the virus.
Transportation which have been used to transport teachers and students to be properly sanitized. We would like conductors to have hand sanitizers there. We'll sanitize people's hands when they enter a bus or buses. And also, if it is possible, it would be ideal if your temperature could be checked before you boarded the buses. Because it makes no sense. Imagine a student coming all the way from Fancy to grammar school in town or girls' high school. Or leaving in one of the Grenadine Islands and traveling up on the boat. Nobody has to check your temperature. And you've traveled that amount of miles. Or say, no, you what? In fit use. You know, or a child who is living in Kingston and has to go to a school in West St. George. Or some other school, some other part of the island. You travel all that amount of miles. And when you reach to the school, you have signs of COVID or symptoms of COVID.
The Teachers Union president said while he is happy that the Ministry of Education has given the assurance that it will provide face masks and regular fogging at schools, he noted that teachers are not health professionals and the authorities must ensure properly trained persons are on hand to conduct regular temperature checks at all schools across the country.
We are into work and we are expecting that the authorities would employ somebody at the gate of the school to do the temperature checks, not our teachers. Our teachers are not health professionals. That's not part of teaching. That's not part of the nature of teaching. You may see it as a moral obligation. If you want to volunteer to go and check temperature, then that's up to you. But listen to the voice of the union. It is the responsibility of the Ministry of Education to ensure that they have trained personnel at the entrance of the school to check temperatures. And you must keep records.
Farmers have been taking advantage of a reduction in the price of fertilizer. Over 4,500 sacks of fertilizer were available at half price today at the Agriculture Input Warehouse. Minister of Agriculture Soboto Caesar said the reduction in the price is part of the ministry's thrust to assist farmers who have had a rough year thus far dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic and drought conditions to improve production and productivity.
Folk across the length and breadth of this country are affected by the many challenges that they are facing. The government decided very early that we have to increase production and productivity in agriculture in this period so that we will address issues of food sovereignty and food security whilst also increasing exports. Since St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we are the breadbasket of the Southern Caribbean. Today, we are witnessing right here at the Input Warehouse the sale and distribution of fertilizer at half price. Some 4,500 sacks of fertilizer were received here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and I was advised by the Input Warehouse that over the next 48 hours they will be sold out. This is definitely evidence that agriculture is resilient in this country and that there are a lot of farmers who are fighting against the challenges which were created by drought 2020 and COVID-19.
Minister Caesar said the number of farmers who turned up at the Input Warehouse today to take advantage of the slash in the price for fertilizer is an indication of their confidence in the agriculture sector.
3 days, we are going to see the last part of the process for the registration for assistance by farmers at the different registration centers throughout St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Some 30 registration centers were established, and I am aware that farmers have been registering over the last week. The information will be compiled by the ministry and we will address the issue of the support. We must recognize that drought 2020 has been recorded as one of the worst droughts that we have experienced in this country in the last 50 years. However, our farmers are very resilient. Our farmers are hard-working. And even though we have seen a doubling of the negatives, when you accumulate the negative impacts of drought 2020 and COVID-19, what we are seeing here today is a show of confidence by our farmers because of the increase in the purchasing of fertilizer.
Minister Caesar said while the reintroduction of COVID-19 lockdown measures in Trinidad will impact the export of local produce, the Love Box initiative has created an additional internal market for farmers.
Trinidad and Tobago, many of the food operators are closing their doors because they are doing this as a response to the spike in the numbers for COVID-19. That is going to cause a reduction in the demand for food from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and right now we are only exporting to Trinidad and Tobago every other week. However, the Love Box initiative has ensured that we have been able to create an internal demand for our food. The prices, the farmers are very happy with the prices. We have been able to incorporate all the cooperatives, all the agro-processors, and many persons now are increasing their production. I want to take this opportunity to encourage our farmers. We are actually looked at by persons from the outside as the country that has gotten it right. And the Honorable Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance and the entire Cabinet, we are very supportive of these initiatives in agriculture.
And the Agriculture Minister says assistance for fisherfolk also affected by the COVID-19 pandemic will soon be rolled out.